Hey guys, Lencac here. Just going to go over something I wanted to touch base with you guys. I had a couple questions on my YouTube channel recently that led me to think about doing a video on this subject, and that subject is something I'll get to here momentarily. Well, and as time goes by, I'm getting the Gunroom a little bit better stuff in it, a little more equipped. This stuff doesn't happen right away. Here's my the wall of loads. Those are some of my stickies from some of my more recent stuff that I've shot and loaded. And of course, this is my my main loading bench. Of course, it's got a couple different press setups on it, motorized tool stations, scales. Of course, the red ones is a Hornady press for loading 50 BMGs. And I managed to scrounge up a decent toolbox because it was getting a little bit overbearing trying to keep track of everything. But today, this is what we are going to be working on. But first, have you guys ever, of course, there's the Chica. This is a really nifty rifle. Piece of cake. Shoots 223. Took it to the range, put a new Crimson Trace scope on it. Thing shoots off the hook. But I tell you what, I got one of these here semi-automatic 12 gauge shotguns. I think they're made in Turkey. But myself and a friend of mine, we took this out to the range a while back. We put some heavy loads in it. There wasn't double-aught buck. I can't remember what they called it, but it was something. And I tell you what, this thing wants to rip your freaking shoulder off. He took 2 shots with it, gave it to me, and said, "Here, you try it." And so I did, and boy howdy, it gets right after it, but I wouldn't want to stand in front of that darn thing. However, what we're doing today is I got my these 2 M1As up here, both of which I built. This one here, my original National Match M1A, that was an original Springfield built M1A. And back in 1991 I got that, along with the Springfield government model scope, 56mm objective. But I shot thousands and thousands of rounds through this thing to the point where the throat was going on the barrel. So I re-barreled it. I basically rebuilt the whole thing. And I put a Fulton Armory National Match stainless steel 1 in 10 twist medium weight barrel on it. And of course the one on the back is one that was just a standard M1A. I went through it, put the different Archangel stock on it. I put another Fulton Armory National Match barrel on it and all that stuff. And so that was a little bit of a fun project too. So I've done rebuilt a couple M1s now, so I feel pretty confident in being able to take them apart and put them together. But today what I wanted to go over with you guys was the difference and some of the stuff about the mounts. Here's a Sadlak mount, Springfield Armory mount. This mount I got with the rifle 28 years ago or whatever it was. But I wanted to go over some of the tricks and tips to get this mount to work properly, because I know over time people have poo-pooed that mount because generally they say it won't hold a 0, and I think I figured out why that would be. I don't know about the new ones, how they got it all set up. I'm assuming it's basically the same looking at the pictures from online. But I discovered a few different things, a couple different things on it that you're going to want to pay attention to if you're mounting one of those mounts on your M1A in order to make it a reliable, consistent rifle, which obviously greatly increases the enjoyment of having it and shooting it. All right, so let's start off on and looking at the 2 basic mounts directly. There's your Sadlak mount. And this is your Springfield mount. Okay? They accomplish the same task through different means, so to speak. And so that's what I want to do. But primarily I want to go into the installation of this Springfield mount on my M1 and some things, some tips, some pointers for you guys that are wanting to put those on. I've noticed that the current one, you see this is an old one. This mount is 25, 30 years old, something like that. But it's aluminum. And I noticed the new ones that Springfield has, they're a little bit different configuration as far as the rail goes and stuff. It's got a cutout here in between front and rear part of the Picatinny. But functionally, it'll install the same way as this one. And so let's go into different aspects of it. One is, let's talk about removal of the mount. In the event that for one reason or another you want to take it off, you can take the Springfield mount off simply by unscrewing these two thumb screws. The Sadlak mount, you have to physically take the scope off the mount because there's a rear screw that screws into this dovetail, and that secures the back end of this. And then there's also another set screw up front here that bottoms out against the receiver, top of the receiver. So you got this going on, so front and back is secured, and then this piece here, it's a cam type of mechanism, and you screw it in, and then you turn that lever until everything draws up tight. And I don't know, I think there's more room on this Sadlak mount for things to require more finicky. I think it's more finicky. Let's say it that way. And the fact that, to me, that's huge, the fact that in order to take that mount off, you have to take the scope off the rail. The Springfield mount, not so much. Two thumb screws, goes back on. It's basically repeatable, which is what I'm going to do, because I'm going to pull this off today, go through, show you some stuff on it, and then when I put it back on, we're going to take it to the range, because I know this thing is zeroed. Now, my thought is that a scope mount, if you got a scope mount that's on a rifle that isn't completely stable on the rifle, you're going to have errant accuracy. It'll change from one shot to the next to a point where it's very frustrating. But one thing you can say, if you get 5 shots, consecutive shots in a row, like these 5 shots, the last 5 shots I took with this at the range, that is an absolute indication that that mount is on there, is sturdy and on the rifle as it can possibly be. Because otherwise, if it was any hindrance of it at all, you would not get 5 consecutive shots like these right here. All right, guys, I'm going to take off the Springfield mount. I'm not taking off the Sadlak mount because it requires the scope to be separated, the rings to be separated from the mount. That rifle is zeroed right now, and so that would put me back to square one on it. I don't want to go through that again. But the reason that you have to take the scope off is that there's an attachment fastener at the back of the mount here that screws into the receiver. So you can't get to it unless the scope's off. That's not the case for the Springfield mount though. This thing comes off easily, goes back on just as easily, and it does retain a pretty darn good zero doing that. But we're going to test it because this is going to be one of my experiments. I'm going to take this off today, and the next time I take this to the range, I know it's zeroed. You know a scope is well mounted on a rifle if you can get 5 shots 5 shots in a row that are under or half MOA to 3/4 MOA. You know at that point that everything's working right, and of all else, the mount you know is installed properly and it is secure. So that's, if you had a mount that was not properly installed and not secure, your groups would be errant. You don't know where they're going to go. But at any rate, I'm going to take it off. These 2 thumb screws come loose. I've already taken the liberty of just loosening them up a touch because they have to be, they got to be pretty darn tight. So, and for that I'll use a blade or whatever to get in there and just kind of break them loose a little bit. But see, that's all we got to do is take these 2 thumb screws off of it. And look, there you go. There's your scope, mount, scope, and rings off all in. And now if you look on this side of the mount, there's some stuff. Well, there's some stuff we will go into about what goes on this side of it, okay? Which is very important for you guys to understand, anybody that's going to put one of these mounts on their M1A. All right, now one of the critical things you're going to want to know about putting the mount on first is the attachment they give you, where you take and you knock out the, it's on a dovetail. If you look at that, you can see it's on a dovetail there. And you knock it out, the stripper clip piece that goes in there, and you put this piece in, which has the threaded hole for the scope mount. Now, something I came through a lot of frustration and time and this and that trying to play with stuff. I figured out that at least when I got this mount, which was many years ago, the thing that holds that clip in place, the original stripper clip thing, the dovetail only goes in from one way, and if I remember correctly, I think the dovetail goes in from left to right. And then it's only held in place by a single spring roll pin that goes right there. Now, what I came to find out is that is not very secure to have it that way. So what I went and did to make sure that this thing remains in place is I took and I drilled 2 holes in this, which is not easy to do. It's at an angle, and this is hardened steel, and I threaded them and tapped them, drilled and tapped them, and put set screws in there so that this piece is absolutely married to the receiver. That is a critical thing to do, I do believe, on these things. I don't know what the new mounts are like, if there's anything different they do about it. It would be nice if they incorporated the set screws into this piece at the factory instead of having me to do that. But that was probably 25 years ago that I got this. The next thing you're going to want to check and see here is, do you see the slots here? These slots right here. It's critical that your scope, that these correspond. You see, I've had to fix that one a little bit just to get it. So these have to seat flush. They have to be in there so that they're not cockeyed in there, because these are not all made together. They're not machined together, so there can be variances in it. And so that needs to, you do whatever you need to do, in which case if it's using Prussian blue or however you want to go about it, but you need to put that in there and see where the contact points are and slowly work it so that it makes, so it's flush. And that's a critical point. That's another critical point. And then the next thing we're going to go into is, after you make sure that's good and your rear dovetail is put in place properly, then we're going to go into the actual putting on of the mount and how you go about tuning it for your scope and your rifle. Okay? Alright guys, on this side of it now, of course you got a E-clip here, which is just to hold that fastener in place, is all that's there for. So that's no big deal. Okay, this guy is a trick. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your scope, and you're going to want to take, you're going to get your scope and you're going to want to take and make sure that your turrets, windage and elevation, are in the middle of their travel so that the scope is zeroed. Okay? That's important because you want to have full range of function, elevation and windage when this is all said and done. And then next, what you're going to see here is we're going to pull this out. This unscrews out of there. We're going to pull this out. This unscrews out of there like that. And then if you notice, you have an insert here. This insert is threaded into the mount. See, and that's a stop. That goes against this piece right here. And then you have a lock nut on it. See that? What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put this whole thing together, and it's a bit of a tedious task at the beginning, but once you get it, it's there. With your scope turrets zeroed, you're going to want to take this rifle to the range, and you're going to want to take and get your windage adjustment, assuming you have it at a generally zero, where you know where you're shooting, because as you turn this thing in and out, it's going to take and move the back of that mount laterally, which is going to change your windage. Okay? So what you're going to want to do is you want to adjust this guy so that you're going to zero your windage with this guy without using the turret. At that point, when you get it zeroed with this in the middle of its travel and you get it to zero with using that, that means that now you can take this off and put it back on, and you should have the same same 0 point still, and then you have a complete full range of function on your windage knobs. And so that's another critical element to consider. Now, for you guys that, for many years I had this scope on it. This is a Springfield Armory government model scope. It's got a huge 56mm objective lens on it, and it served its purpose in the day. It's a good scope, nice optics. It has an internal level in it, which is nice. These things, it's a must that you have a level on these things. And but the 56mm objective made it so that if I ever needed to, I couldn't see the iron sights underneath the mount. And the mounts are made specifically, the Springfield mount is made specifically, if you look, so that you should be able to see. Springfield mount is made so you should be able to see underneath the scope, see the iron sights even with the scope on. So at any rate, guys, that's some things, some tips, and some things that you might want to consider when you mount up one of these. And if you do that, I think, because I've seen these Springfield scopes have gotten some bad press, mainly because of they say its inability to hold a 0. And as we speak, I'm putting this thing back on. And what you're going to want to do is, when you tighten it down, you're going to want to tighten down this front piece. You're going to want to get that so those two vertical and horizontal rails line up properly, and then you'll take and draw your the rear one tight. And then, now I'm going to take and put this, I'll tighten these up a little bit more, but when I get back, I'm going to take it back to the range now that I've had this off, and put it back on and see what the 0 is on it. That'll be an interesting little test. So anyways, guys, that's my little rant today about the Springfield mounts and the Sadlak mounts. So I hope you all enjoyed. Have a great day, guys. This is Lencac, over and out.